All right, without further ado, I would like to turn the time over to Luis Martinez. He is our lead tech support technician and uh, executive of that department. So, Luis, take it over.
Thank you, Catherine. Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to be going over our detailed training for the year for 2025. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Some of what we're going to cover is our basic settings for the program, some advanced settings, and then we'll go over a full return. And then any final notes that I have will go into. As opposed to other trainings where there are PowerPoints, this is going to be more of working with the actual program. So without that, we'll go ahead and get right into the program. So give me a second to pull that up. All right. So let me go ahead. So first of all, I always recommend when you're using the program just to make your life easier. It's especially if you're using, they send you like digital stuff or like PDFs. A second screen is always very useful. If you don't have a second screen when you're trying to input something, you're going to have side by side like this, which is okay sometimes. But if you do have that second screen, it will be very useful. I'll show you some things that the programs have that take advantage of that kind of things here. So on the right side, we have a W2 that we're going to be using to create our return. And then on the left side, we have the program. I'll go ahead and move that W2 out of this screen and then use the full program full screen so we can kind of see it better because I'll make it bigger. But before we do that, we're going to go ahead and just maximize this guy here. We'll go into our defaults and settings. I want to cover some stuff here. So there's two ways that you can run our software. Well, there's multiple ways, but two main ways that our clients use to run our software. Number one is the local install. The local install is where you install the program on one computer, and that's all you have. And you're up and running when it's installed. There's nothing really you have to configure besides your default preparer and ERO, which we'll be doing that today. A second version that you can have is something like a network. When you have a network, then you have multiple computers in your office, and all the computers are sharing one data, and you have a server or a main computer for that data. In this scenario here today, we're going to be using the local because it's a lot easier to demonstrate. Okay, so depending on what you have, local or network, like I said, this is going to change here. It's going to be either C drive or T drive or whatever drive you have for your network. This is the location of where your data is stored. If you're on a single computer, then only that computer has access to that data. If you have a separate computer that you install and it's also local, the data is not going to be shared. You need a network for that. But either way, this is where the data is being looked for. So these couple settings here is just the folders where you have your data. Inside of your settings and data, you can have multiple folders. For example, if you have 5 preparers and you're on a network, you can have a folder for each one to separate uh, what each preparer did. Okay, and then down here's the same thing, but this is for your prior year. This right here. So number 6 is the depreciation program path. That is going to be where your program is. Your programs, even if you have a network, if you go cloud-based, whatever you do, your programs must always be on your local computer. Okay, it always has to be there. So that's where the program is at. This is for the 568s. If you have California, it automatically makes that for you on the program. So this is where the data is located for that. Default preparer and default ERO. Every time you make a return on our program, it's going to use this information for that return. Okay. So we use something called snapshots. So what happens is if you create tax return 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these are empty, those 1, 2, 3, and 4s will not have the information here. If on number 5, you're like, oh, I have to go set this up, and you set it up, 5, 6, 7, 8 returns will all have it. However, 1, 2, 3, and 4 will still not have it because when you created it, it took a snapshot of your settings and they were not there. Okay. So it's very important to have these set up in the beginning of the year. And if you need to change it after like middle of the year, come in here and do it on default settings. The billing, we've already done a quick guide into the billing, so I'm not going to really go too much into it. Again, this is where you would, set up your billing. If you have different profiles for family and friends, you can set that up there. We cover this on the quick tips for that information. If you'd like to see, go ahead and check that video out. I go over how to set up your billing and your print settings. Now, some of the things that I like to go into in the basic settings and that I like to use is number one, it's always checked by default, but for some reason, some people like to uncheck it. Do not uncheck 14. 14 is very important. That makes it so every time you open the program, it checks for an update and downloads it. It is very crucial, especially in the beginning of the tax year where stuff is changing a lot. You want to have that checked. And I always recommend closing the program down when you leave for the day. If you go to lunch, close the program down. That way, when you come back, it checks for updates. Or, every once in an hour, just close the program and reopen it so that it checks for updates. Because, like I said, in the beginning of tax season, states are being released, uh, things are changing, and you want to make sure you're always up to date. For the input method, if this is the first time you ever ran the program, when you go into a return, if you do not set this here, it's going to ask if you want the line input or the forms and schedules. I will go ahead and show that inside of the return once we get into it. And these are all the just settings here that you can have. A couple other things you can use. You might see us go into the program and check some of these off when we're going to go ahead and troubleshoot a reject. And that's just for us to save you on paper. There's a setting here so that you don't print an acknowledgement. Instead, it'll preview it on your computer. We'll do that so to save you some. Okay, so it's right here, preview access instead of printing. Okay, so that's pretty much covers the basic settings. There's not too much here. You can go ahead and configure this to your liking. But what we're going to go ahead and cover is the miscellaneous, which is the advanced settings here. I always say this in every single seminar that I do, how important backups are. And I cannot stress it enough again. I'm going to say it again. Backups are super important. If you're on a local, and a correct backup is also super important, because if you're on a local computer and you make a backup to your documents folder, your computer goes down, well, there goes your backup. Okay. If you're on a network and you're storing your backups in your network, the server goes down, there goes your backup. So as you can see here, my local drive is C, but I'm storing my backups under F. Okay. That's a separate drive. So if my computer were to go down, I still have my F drive. I can always pull my backup up. If you're on a network, make your backup C. That way, each individual workstation keeps a backup. So even if the server goes down, any of the workstations can become a server basically by just restoring that. Okay, so it's very important that you set up your backups correctly. Backup frequencies, again, we cover this in quick tips. I'm not going to go too much over it, but I do recommend setting that up during the beginning of the year. If you need help, reach out to our tech support. We will definitely help you set that up. It's very important to get that set up. Program access in case you want to protect your program. When you go out to lunch, you don't want someone to go into your computer and open that up. They can go ahead and basically lock your program down with this. And in order for them to go back into the program, they'll have to basically type in the password. If you don't want people to return transmit returns, you can check that and it'll lock it out so they can't transmit without a password. All right. So let's go ahead and go. Okay. And we're going to go into the return. I do see there is a lot of questions going over the tax on tips. We are going to cover a little brief over that. I will be doing that in this return. So we will be covering that, okay? So for this return, we're going to go ahead and just go into new clients. All right, so we're going to go ahead and create a new client. The client that we create is going to be basically the next client on the list. So I'm going to click OK. All right, for this client, we're going to be using a single. We're going to go ahead and pull that W-2 that I have here. I'm going to go ahead and pull this to the side so I can see it here. Okay. And we'll go ahead and start the return here. So for this guy, his name is going to be John Tester. We'll give him a social here. 12300 1234. Give him a date of birth. Okay. And then he is a tester. Okay, so his address is 123 Small Street. Okay. And then our program has like a lookup. So if you press tab, if you see when I went from here, instead of going to city, it went straight to zip code by pressing tab. If I type in a zip code, it's going to look through our database and pull that. We pull that database from the post office. So based on the zip code, it will pull the city for you. We'll go ahead and press OK. The next screen is a little more information of that guy. We're going to go ahead and just give him a number. 1234. There we go. Press tab. Is it the same time for his day phone number? We're going to click yes. For myself, I always recommend getting emails. I think emails are important to have on tax returns, especially with a lot more things going digital these days and going remote. I think emails are important. If you do get their email, go ahead and put that email here. So we're going to go 123 at email.com. It makes it so much easier for you. And there are benefits to having that. And we'll go over that a little bit later. Driver license, go ahead and put that in if they have it. Keep in mind that some states do require that to be in there, and they will give you a validation error if you don't have it. If you're in one of the states that doesn't need it, you can leave that empty. We'll leave it empty for now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're not going to enter any dependents for this person. So we're going to go ahead and once we're in here, we're just going to verify the information. We'll go from top to bottom. So we'll make sure everything is correct. Again, if you need to go back in and change any of that, you can always click line 23, and that will bring you back to this page to enter information. If they have a protection pin from the IRS, this is where it would go into. Okay, so you can always go back in there. You can always edit anything. Nothing is permanent once you add it. You don't have to delete the return and start over. You can always edit something. Okay, so we'll check everything here. We're going to be using the standard deduction for him. If you need to switch it for any reason, if they're married filing separate, but they're going to itemize, or they're dependent of another, or they're itemizing for state purposes, this is where that's going to go. For this one, we're going to keep it pretty simple. It's going to be a simple return. We'll keep a standard deduction. Now, one of the benefits I talked about earlier about having that second screen is that we have something called live preview that doesn't get really used much. But if you have a second screen, and you have your client there with you, and the second screen can be facing him. And I'm going to show you what's going to happen when we go into line input. Okay, so I'm going to make this a little bit smaller again, so you can kind of see what's going to happen. So this live preview will start mimicking whatever you're doing on that second screen. So if, for example, you can see everything is 0 right now, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to add that W-2 in right now. So we're going to go ahead and add the W-2. Okay, we're going to go ahead and type that number in. 9, and then we'll go ahead and get that information. Big, oops, 1, 2, 3, 4, small street, and then the zip code is 92316. Okay, so you see right now that our W-2 has blue on it. This is the wizard mode. The wizard mode will try to pull based off the tax tables everything for you, so you don't have to enter it manually. So when we press tab and we go into our wages, that W-2 has 26,700. Okay, so if I press tab, it's going to pull the Social Security tax withheld and the Medicare tax withheld. Obviously not the federal, because sometimes they have more, less, depending on what they're withdrawing. Okay, withholding from that. So that doesn't get populated automatically, but most of the stuff does. If it's wrong, you can always edit it manually, but for the majority of the time, this is pretty spot on. So we're going to go ahead and put this withholdings. Okay, and then for the W-2, I will bring it in so you guys can kind of see that too. Give me a second. I'll put that in right there. Kind of see what I'm entering. There we go. All right. So pretty much we're just going to enter the W-2 as we see there. So we have that CA. Let me just make this smaller. And I apologize if you cannot see the W-2, but you should be able to see the program. So we just enter everything that's on the W-2 as it is for 8. Okay, and then 26,700, 1802.28. 28. And you see, whenever I put the decimals, it takes them away. It's going to round off to the nearest tenth. So the IRS does not like decimals. Just keep that in mind. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that out. We're pretty much done with this W-2. All we need is the SDI. So that is 320.40. You can see it's going to go down to 320. So now we come to one of the new things that happened this year on the Big Beautiful Bill, which is the no tax on tips. So the no tax on tips and the no tax on overtime. Keep in mind that there are certain things that they have to abide by. It's only on the overtime premium, but if it's included in the W-2, it is not really forced for the employer to list it. So it's kind of hard because there's no specific spot for it on the W-2 right now. There's no letters or anything like that. I believe they said that next year they're planning to put on a letter for it, but right now on box 12, that doesn't exist right now. So you kind of have to go based off what they're telling you or what they say on it. But basically, it's going to go down in 36, and this is going to exclude that amount from that specific thing. So, for example, if they had 1,670 excluded, that's qualified, you would put that as the overtime compensation there, and then it's going to remove that from the basically the taxes. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and click there. So you can see here that they're getting a refund of $2,774. So we're going to go back in right now and we're just going to make some edits here on the W-2 to kind of switch that out. We're going to put this to 0, see if that's changed at all. Okay, give me a second. So you can see here that when I put that amount in there, it actually did bring up this here. So that actually does come up. Okay, so that whatever we have in there right now is actually updating. I'm going to click OK. Okay, so 2,604. Their total tax, you can see it's 1,098. So that by adding that amount there, that did reduce that total tax. 1,600. Okay. So you can see that it does go down. So it is there, and the program will automatically do that. But what it cannot do is tell you exactly what amount of that is overtime. That's in the W-2, and there's no real way for you to kind of know what it is until they tell you this. There's no spot for it in the W-2 right now. So it depends on the employer on how that's going to manage for that specific thing. But for us right now, we're going to go ahead and continue. You can see here, that's pretty much their return right now for now on this one here. There are other things that got added, specifically the Schedule 1A. So we're going to take a look at that Schedule 1A real quick. So let's go into other income. So 84. Okay. And then income. Oh, sorry, right there. So right there under other income, we have the additional deductions, which is this is basically the whole no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. The Schedule 1A, that's where it's all included into. So you'll have that in there. The no tax on car loan interest, again, that's in there as well, based on the VIN number. Most of this, like this year, like I said, it's going to be manually. You have to do that manually based off the publications and the instructions. We don't have anything to verify against because it's so new and it's implemented, pretty much last minute. So everything is there, but the program will do calculations for you based off what you tell it to do. So if you tell it to exclude that amount, it will exclude that amount from it. All right. So we're going to go back in and we're going to kind of increase the difficulty of this return just a little bit. So we have his W-2. By all means, if we go into the thing here, we can go into the validity check and see that it's red. We can see why it's red. Okay, so we can see that we are missing a third-party designee. Okay, taxpayer PIN, and we have all these yellow ones here that are basically warnings that we have. So the reason those are there, and I left them there on purpose, was it's telling us that preparer information is not there. So we need to go ahead and add a preparer. So let's go ahead and my tax, and then just type in Louise. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. Beck Street. Wilmington. CA 2316. One of the things you have to be really careful, especially when you're doing this. It's a habit of some people, and it's a habit of mine sometimes when I'm typing in, I'll press space at the end. Make sure there's no spaces at the end. That will cause validation errors. So if you have any information here, you'll put that in there. For now, I'm just going to put a PTIN number. So it's going to be P. So if you are going to be filing returns for New York, keep in mind New York does do, I believe, 10 returns without being registered with the state. After that, you do need to register with the state, and you got to go through their whole state validation and accreditation process. If you do have an ID, you can go ahead and click yes, and then I'll put the ID on the prepare state ID number. For this, we're going to click no. Okay, we'll put a phone number here. Okay, random number there, and then we'll click self-employed. Email address, so we'll put that in there as well. .com. If you're using Republic Bank and you do have your Urban, that's going to go in there. If not, it's okay to be left empty. On a return, not everything needs to be filled out. There's some things that you can leave empty, which is perfectly fine. So once everything is done, we're not going to click the update to tax preparer, specifically if you have multiple preparers in your office. What this does is replaces everyone's preparer with this one. So we're going to click OK now. OK again, and then we're going to go right back into the return now. So we'll go back into the return that we have. Again, this is our recall client screen. Again, I mentioned this earlier. This is one of my favorite screens. If if I had one screen I could be on all the time, it would be this screen. From this screen, you can go into your prior returns. You can start a new client. You can get acknowledgments. You can do everything. Our program is color coded, so you can see we have a yellow one. The yellow one means that it has been sent off to the IRS, and we are awaiting that acknowledgement. If it's green, it means it has been accepted. If it's yellow, then it was rejected by either the IRS or the state. There's a brown one for on extension. White means that you're working on it, you haven't sent it, you haven't done anything. This case will go with this one. Okay, so now that we set that up, remember I told you earlier that we use snapshot. So when I created this return, I didn't have a preparer assigned. So we have to go into the bottom, and now I can assign my preparer. Okay, so now our preparer is assigned, we can go into validation check, and we can see here that there's no more federal errors. Okay, we do have something here. Let's see, the IRS expense refund, but it's not include direct deposit information. So letting me know that, hey, I don't have a direct deposit right now. Okay, so this is normal. That is going to stay there until you preview the 8879. And if you're going to e-file it, you have to have that. I always recommend keep those printed out, keep them in your office stored. That's basically the permission that you have to e-file that return. So now we see it's yellow. Okay. So again, this is because the direct deposit information. So if I put that there, if I put something in like Chase and I get a Chase routing number, let me get that real quick. We'll just go on to the internet real quick and I will pull that to the side and I will get a Chase routing number. Because the program does, if you put like a random number and it's just a fake number, it will tell you that the routing number is wrong. So let's get that there. And then for the bank account, I think it's 16 numbers. I'm not really sure, but let's see. All right, so you can see now that I've got everything the tax return needs, and now it's green. It's good to go. So at this point, the return is technically complete. I can send it off. I've done the return, a simple W-2 return. I have the direct deposit information in there, so because they're going to get a refund. This is green. I can go ahead and go to e-file, and I can click the A2A transmit. Okay, so I can go ahead and click A2A. Before you send it out, it is going to give you a confirmation screen with some information on it. This is so you can verify to make sure everything that you put in there is correct. It is going to let you know how much amount is going to be refunded, what account it's going to. Remember, it's always very important to check this because the program will not send something out that you did not tell it to. If the bank account number is incorrect, at one point it was entering correct, the program will still send it out thinking it's the correct information. Okay, so that's why we added that secondary screen. That secondary screen here now kind of makes you verify everything before you transmit. So once that's done, you can transmit, it will send it off. Keep in mind, once something is sent off to the servers, it can no longer be pulled down. Even if you just sent it off like 10 seconds ago and you call us back saying, hey, I made a mistake. Unfortunately, due to IRS regulations, we cannot pull that down anymore. It has to go to the IRS. So always verify the information before it goes out. So again, that is pretty much the program. Now I'm going to talk about some extra things that are useful in the program. Okay. So some of the things that are useful in the program is when we added 2 years ago is the calculation logs. The calculation logs are going to tell you if, for example, you're looking at this return, hey, why don't they get the EIC? You can see the return, the forms used. These are the forms that we've used in this return here. So these here don't really have. You're like, hey, where's my EIC? Why am I not getting the EIC? I can load it in there, do the due diligence. We can answer these things here. So we can click here. Yes, no, yes. That you, yes, yes, no, yes, no, yes, and yes. You have to go through with these. These are questions you're supposed to ask the taxpayer. If something is going to cause it to not allow you to get it, it's going to turn red, or it's going to trigger the next question. For example, here, if any information was inconsistent, so then you got to go ahead and answer the next question. If it's no, it'll be good. If this one was no, you see this is red, and it's not going to let you get it until everything's met. If it's red, obviously it doesn't meet the diligence, and they won't be able to get that credit. So now that I've done everything, it's no longer there. But okay, you can see here my refund did not change. It says I have the AC, and then you go into your line input. Okay. So we go on to here. Let me just make this a little bigger here. Okay, so we go here and we go down to the credits here and we look at the EAC is empty and you're like, hey, why am I not getting the EAC? Well, a lot of times we got calls saying, hey, they're not getting the EAC, they qualified for it. We've added this calculation log, and this calculation log is always expanding. So if you find another credit, and then we'll go ahead and add that in there too. But this is letting us know the EIC is disallowed due to the AGI limit over the 19,104. So because of their age and they don't have a dependent, uh, their AGI basically disallows them from getting that EIC. And that's pretty much the same thing if you were to go into the schedule EIC and preview it. You can see down here in small letters, it tells you, let me zoom in a little bit. It tells you the same thing. So instead of just having it on each of those returns there, what we ended up doing is we have that calculation log. That helps us, get a little bit less cost when why it's not going through. And if you still need help, you can always give us a call. It also, if we ever do any overrides, so if I go into forms and schedules and I go all the way to the bottom, scroll for overrides, and I wanted to override something, if I type in 1040 overrides, this will allow you to override anything in the program to whatever you like. Okay. Some of the uses for this is that I've seen clients call in asking, hey, I did an amended and I'm trying to replicate their amended. Uh, this is where you can do overrides. I don't recommend replicating. There's better ways to do that than to replicate. But basically, you can go here and you can see this is their W-2. I can say they got 35,000 for whatever reason you want to overwrite that. That will turn red because it's an override. Okay. And then we will also have a calculation log saying, hey, you have this as an override. So that's how we can tell if you're like, well, this is wrong. Why is he getting 1,000? He's getting 2,000. That is because you triggered an override and you changed the amount there. So that's why the refund went down, because it's now more. So we're going to go ahead and just put delete. And on this one, you want to delete. You don't want to put 0. 0 will make the override be a 0. Okay. So let's go ahead and go here. And then we're going to go ahead and say that this return is pretty much done. It's green. It's good to go. But let's go ahead and take a little step a notch. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to add a Schedule C to it just so that we can, add some more things, kind of extend the return a little bit. It's no longer just a simple return. So we're going to go ahead and go into Forms and Schedules, and we're going to add a Schedule C. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and add the Schedule C. Do you want to carry in the basic information? We're going to click yes to that. Okay, you'll fill out any of the questions here. And let's say they made $50,000 in their Schedule C business. Okay, so you can see down here, it's going to go ahead and kind of give you an override, not an override, an overall view of the actual return, their gross income, their profits, and the amount owed for that. Okay, so right now, if we were to do the okay, and then we were to go okay right now, they would have a balance too, because again, they got those $50,000 on their Schedule C's and they have no withholding. So that $50,000 came out basically tax free to them. They got it and they didn't pay any taxes on it, no withholdings, no social security, none of that stuff was paid. So when taxes are due, the IRS now wants them to pay the withholdings and all the tax due on that amount. So you can see here our total income went up because now we have our W-2 plus our Schedule C. However, our standard deduction removes part of that because it's a standard deduction that changes every year, which gives us our taxable income. If we go into the 1040 instructions and we go to the taxable income and we look that number up, it's going to give us a tax number of 5,345. Okay. They made payments on that. So let's see here. And now you see that. So you're saying, okay, well, they made 3,702 payments, but their tax is 5,345. Something doesn't add up. So if we bring up a simple calculator, which we'll do right now, okay, so we bring up the 5,345 minus the 3,702 payments, which they had from their W-2. They're saying, why aren't they just paying the 1,643? What we're forgetting is because this is Schedule C, is subject to self-employment tax, which is what covers their Medicare, Social Security, and all that stuff. Basically, it's where the government gets that part. And the remaining amount comes from that there. We can always see that by going to the self-employment tax here. This is empty. This is going to remain empty. This is more for the churches. But however, you can preview this and it will break down the 50,000 and it'll break it all down for you. And it'll tell you how much, self-employment tax for them is 7,065 out of that 50,000. So that's why it's I think it was like 8,070 7,708 instead of just the simple amount that we're saying, hey, it should be 1,643. Because yeah, their taxes is only 534, but we also have to pay the self-employment tax. And that's what adds up to the total tax there. Okay. So just keep that in mind there. Now, sometimes we might need a little help. Okay. We might be in the program and say, I'm not 100% sure how to do this. This year, we've teamed up with Taxpert. Taxpert is a AI that you can ask it questions that is trained specifically on content from the tax book. So that is really useful because if you're only using content that's IRS approved or the tax book, you're getting a correct answer or at least a more accurate answer, as opposed to use like ChatGPT, Grok. Those go online and search random articles. So if someone makes a fake article and it gets included in there, it can give you a wrong answer. So when I recommend anyone that if they want to use an AI, I always recommend using Taxpert simply because it's trained on the tax book only. So if you wanted to access it, so just click that button there. Okay. That is going to bring you up to the login page. Once you log in, every time you click on it, it's going to bring you directly to Taxpert. So, for example, on the question that we had for the no tax on tips, so I'm going to ask it a simple question that I have already predefined. If I have a client that made $4,987 of overtime, they get paid $17.50 normal rate. Their overtime rate is $26.25. How much of that, if they worked 190 hours of overtime, can be excluded? So we go ahead and press enter. Taxpert's going to go through all its documents that it has, and it's going to search it, and it's going to give us back an answer. So we're going to wait for that to come up here. So you can see here, it's doing the whole calculations. So it's explaining everything to us. So we'll wait for it to go through. So again, the full amount they made of overtime was $4,987. However, not all of that is allowed to be excluded because only the premium qualifies for it. So the premium would have been that specific amount that's paid over it, not the actual base rate. So in this case, the 4,987 that they worked of overtime, only 1,662 of it would be allowed to be excluded in that. And again, we got that due to Taxpert. They have the federal, they have states. You can ask state questions. So, and the good thing about it is it always gives you the citations. So you can always go into the actual document and preview it from the actual tax book. So that's very, very useful. Okay. So I always recommend, using that. And how you get Taxpert, if you don't have Taxpert, you can go into your client portal under current programs archives. You do have the link here on the button. You can click on that, which will take you to the Taxware store. You can purchase Taxpert there at a discounted price of $299. Regular price is $389. So I always recommend, just I like to save money, so I would recommend doing that. But that's how basically it integrates into our software. We have that button there as long as you log in once. Every time you go into, as long as the browser stays open, even if you close Taxpert down, it will come back up for you. Okay. So again, we go back into this here. So now we have a penalty. You can go ahead and access that penalty there. I'm not going to do that for now. You can see here that we are back to red, and because we are missing our business codes. So we have to go into our Schedule C to do those business codes. You can go into the business codes by going to the Schedule C or double clicking on it. Okay, keep in mind, not everything, you can't double click on everything. The majority of things you can, and it will take you to the location on the validation. So we're going to go ahead and go into that. We're going to look at the business codes. We're going to list. We're going to go, there's a bunch of business codes. These are predefined, so you can find the one that appears to them, that applies to them. We'll just do, let's submit, and there it goes. Once that's done, click OK, click OK, and now you can see there's no more validation errors. So at this point, it's pretty much good. Okay. Again, if at any point you're going through, like I said, if you have that second screen open, as you move the program, this screen will update itself. We can see right now we were in the, let me make this thing smaller so you can kind of see it again. We were inside of the Schedule C, so that's the last thing that's there. So we go back in, and if we go into the 1040, it's going to update to the 1040. And this screen here, again, is very useful for your clients. If you're having it there, you can go ahead, and the only thing is that in order for you to move that, you kind of have to scroll down. So if you have a touchscreen for your clients, that's even better because they can just touch it and go up and down on it and kind of see the return. But other than that, you would have to control it with your mouse. But yeah, if I go into any spot on the return here, if I go into and just change it, you can see right now it's 26. If I updated that to 126, click OK. OK again. It immediately updates to 126. So they can see basically what you're doing live while you have that screen facing them. So it's a very useful screen. Okay, let me go ahead and just change that back to 26,000. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go back over here. And you can see again, we have our Schedule C, we have our W-2. Now the client owes money, so he owes 8,708. So our direct deposit is no longer going to be used, obviously, because now they owe money. Now we have to go into the electronic payments. Okay, so when you go in here, it's going to ask if you want to do a debit or to pay the balance due. You click yes on this one. It's going to load their bank account in there because we've already put it in for the refund. Now, if for some reason you go into this screen and you don't want to go in there, you can, because what's going to happen is if you delete everything here, okay, you can delete everything, and you think you're all set, and you're like, okay, well, I'm done. I'm not going back in there. They're going to pay via the voucher, so they're going to pay via the voucher here. Okay, so if you need to make sure it's in there, don't go in there. Do not go into the electronic payment again. You can always, again, get that information from here. You can see no direct debit information, okay? What's going to happen is if you delete everything, you want to make sure that you delete everything, or you want to make sure that it's not there. When you go back in there, okay, if you click no, it's going to do that. But a lot of times we have the habit of doing electronic payment and then just yes, and it's going to pre-fill everything back up for you again. Specifically on the states, I don't believe all the states ask whether you want to use direct debit or not. Just make sure not to go in there, okay? Because if you go back in there and you don't want to pay, it's gonna add it back into the return, and the moment you pay again, it's gonna be in there, and you can see that the information. Obviously, they didn't put anything there, so it's empty, but it is gonna go based off of that, and then your client's gonna get charged, and he's not gonna be very happy. So when you go in there, you delete everything. Just make sure you don't go back in. If you need to verify if it's completely gone, you have that final screen. This final screen will always show what's being transmitted. So you can see there's no direct debit information, or you can give support a call. We'll definitely help out. We can go into the validity to make sure that there's nothing there. But again, just important to do that. Once you remove something, not to go in, for example, now, let's say, hey, my client came to me and guess what? The Schedule C wasn't his. It was his wife's, or, it was his brother's. So we have to remove our Schedule C. So how we do that is if it's a schedule and it has multiple things such as Schedule C, Schedule A, Schedule C, Schedule D, Schedule E, and Schedule F. Those have multiple things that you can have in there, like multiple properties, multiple companies in there. You have to go into that specific schedule to delete them. So you have to go into the program. So you're going to go into your Schedule C, and then you're going to select this, and you're going to press delete on your keyboard. Okay. Once it's done, it's gone. There's no bringing it back. Okay. So at that moment, your Schedule C will be removed. Everything that was tied to the Schedule C, the Schedule SE, all that stuff is gone. Okay. If you need to remove something that does not have a subschedule into it, sort of say, like the EIC, okay, because I'm going to remove it because they're not getting it. So if I want to remove that, we want to go into clear forms, which is line 88. So we can go here and we can see clear forms. Now, you can go into forms and schedules and go to clear forms, or you can do line input and go down here where it says clear forms as well. Okay, line 88, you can see it's the same number, but you notice the program has little numbers all on the left side of these things. That's for the mouse free. So if you use forms and schedules, This is intended for mouse free, so you don't use your mouse. You can see my computer at the bottom right now. It's flashing down here. So if I were to use my keyboard and put my mouse way up here, not touch anything, and just type in the number 8, it will take me to clear forms. Okay. So I can go ahead and double click that. And at that point, that is no longer there. So again, if you need to remove a form that just has, it's the actual form itself, the main form, 88 is where you're going to go. But if you have to remove a schedule that has subschedules, you have to go into the main schedule and delete the subschedules in there. Schedule, again, schedule C, schedule E, F, and stuff like that. Okay. So pretty simple to delete. So we're going to say, okay, this is pretty much done. That is set up. Okay. We're going to go back. You see it's yellow. We've made some changes. Okay. And again, that's coming back again because I removed this whole direct deposit. So let me see if I have, it's a new install, so I might not have. Yes, I do. So whenever you enter something in the program, let's say a bank account, a W-2, it is going to create a database for you. So the next time someone comes in with Chase, you can see there you've already have it. You can just select it. It's going to pre-fill the name out. I just realized I spelled that wrong. So Chase, that's correct. And then you just type in the number, their bank account, because that obviously it can't store that because that's going to be different for every client it comes in. But W-2s, the same thing. For example, if I were to go into forms and schedules right now, and I went to my W-2s and I added another one, if I press F5, it's going to bring out all the ones that I've done so far. So that makes it really, really easy. If you have multiple people coming in, you don't have to do the whole text again. You just select the company and boom, everything's done. And you just go into it again. You type in your amount, tap, how much they withdrew, withheld, boom. And that's pretty much it. Okay. Again, it's changed because they didn't withhold enough, but that is pretty much it. You want to remove a W-2, same way. Click on it, delete, click yes, and at that point, it has been deleted. And we're back to the return. So at this point, pretty much the return is done. You can send it off, you can print it off, and it is complete. Okay. Do we have any questions, Catherine, that we can answer?
Um, I don't know. I'll rattle this one off. I don't know if it's possible at this point, or if it's in your expertise, but an
So if
example of
the
the extra
info is
6,000.
entered on the federal side, it will
Mm-hmm.
go into the state. Like you have bank account information that
Mm-hmm.
you have on that you've entered into the federal. When you go into a state, California, and you go into the like the bank withholding stuff, it will pull from that. So it will actually grab that information from the federal side and pull into the state. It's all shared. So there's ways you can go ahead and delete it. I mean, delete like the return the entries in case it's wrong. Like for example, when I created my Chase, I misspelled Chase. I can go back out of the return. I'll show you how to do that real quick. So we can go here and we can edit the lookup records, and I can go into the bank information. And you can see I have my misspelled Chase there. So I can just select it, delete it, delete the empty ones too, just to make it clean. Okay. And from now on, it's not going to be there anymore. Okay, change the date of birth and see what happens. Okay, we can do that. Let's go into the tester here. Um, let's go ahead and make them 1955. Okay. Let's see, what is the thing here right now? So it is kind of want to get a thing in before we go out there. Okay. So we update that. Okay. Okay, so the refund I think did go up a little bit. Let's take a look at the schedule 1A, see if there's anything that's changed there. And schedules, schedule 1, schedule 1A. So you can see there now it's people were asking for the 6K deduction. It's showing up right there, line 35. So it will calculate based off the age. Let's see. Where do you put a client is deceased? So for the client deceased, depend on exactly what you're trying to do. If someone else is claiming the refund, then you do the 1310. But in basic information, we do have that down here, the taxpayer state of death or the spouse state of death. So that is where you can go ahead and answer that. Let's see. What else do we have? The overtime input, again, the overtime input is pretty simple. It is just the W-2. Down here at the bottom, you have your overtime compensation. So whatever amount of this box here, line 12, was their total, their qualified premium overtime is what's going to be here only. So unfortunately, like I said, there is no way for us to track it because there's no specifics yet, and employers are not required to list it anywhere right now because there's nowhere to put that in. We are thinking it's probably going to be an item in line 12 eventually, but for now, it's based off what they tell you. So if they tell you like, oh, my employer told me I have 1,600 qualified, then that is what's going to go there. The IRS already knows that this is probably going to be one of the biggest things that's going to hold up or cause audits on this year because there's no way to verify that besides what they're telling you. There's no specific spot in the W-2, as you saw when I showed you the W-2 here. Again, this is an actual W-2 that will be coming this year. There is no spot for that to go there. Okay.
All right. Thank you
Any
so
other questions?
much. Thank you so much, Luis.
Give me
Appreciate
one
all
second.
that you
Give me
have.
I cannot hear you, Catherine.
Oh, you can't, huh?
It might be me though. Give me a second. I think it was just me. I think I'm
Okay,
good.
can you hear me now?
Yes, I'm good.
Good. Okay. Thank you for joining us, Luis. You've done an amazing job as always. I know it's a crazy time when everybody's starting to get ready to do those returns. I just opened an email today that said the IRS predicts biggest or IRS leadership predicts biggest tax refunds ever. Well, that's a pretty exciting time. It's definitely time to make sure that you have access to the tax expert for those types of tax questions. Of course, our tech support is amazing for the technical questions and making sure your program is working and is working well. But those tax questions, the tax expert, the tax book has always been a great resource, but the tax expert just takes that to the next level. And so having that kind of resource 24/7 is definitely worth your $2.99. So visit the store.taxwaresystems.com to have that as your assistant this season and check it out. I know our team will never be without it anymore. I mean, they've always done the books, they've always had those books around, but TaxPert just takes it to the next level, especially with the documentation and being able to refer back to it. It is your responsibility as a tax professional to make sure that tax return is true and accurate before it is sent. So that is a responsibility that you have as you sign these returns. So we're grateful to be a part of that process and a part of that team for over 45 years. Um, this recording will be available on our website soon, as well as should be in Spanish. I would say before a week. Give us a week to make sure that that gets done well. So we hope you have a great rest of your day. We appreciate all you've done, and again, that's store.taxwaresystems.com is the link to making that purchase. And if you need some further assistance, we're ready for you. All right. Have a great rest of your day. We appreciate you. Bye bye.